you so much for the members that have joined us today. I know that there have been a few sort of complications. Can't legislate for that. Never worked with children, animals, or technology, apparently, and that's certainly proving to be true in my case. So I can only apologise, but I trust that you will get maximum value out of this webinar today. I'm joined by some colleagues from CITB who will introduce themselves shortly. They will be talking about the revisions to the Skills and Training Fund for medium-sized companies. We also have some generic questions, I imagine, from members about apprenticeships and capacity. And of course, we're available to you to ask any questions that you feel we may be in a position to answer today. This is the first in the series of webinars that we do intend to be putting on, joint webinars between CITB and the NASC. So do feel free to suggest any topics that you think we will be in a position to help you with. And without further ado, I will now pass over to Ali Hughes, even, of the CITB, to introduce himself and to talk about what the subject matter is today.
Thanks, Henry. Morning, everyone. Yes, my name's Ali Hughes, and I work as an advisor for the CITB, based up in North Wales. But I'm also the link with NASC and the CITB training group for the CITB. I'm joined this morning by a couple of colleagues from the funding team, Maria Cooper and Richie Everett. I don't know, Maria and Richie, do you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about your roles?
Oh yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Maria. I work within the skills and training team, the funding team within CITB. So we process all the applications for the small, micro and the medium funds. So yeah, any questions about the presentation then as we go through, happy to take them.
Hi, and I'm Richie Everett. I'm part of the funding team. I've just recently rejoined CITB, having previously worked with CITB for 8 years as such. So working in the product funding team as such.
Thanks, Maria and Richie. So just a couple of housekeeping things first. Can I just ask everyone to kind of mute as we go through the presentation? I will stop for questions at certain points throughout, but if there is any burning questions, please, raise a hand or put the question in the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer it between the three of us. Okay, so just to start off with a bit of background about the funding. So the Skills and Training Funding for small businesses was launched back in 2016 for employers who employed less than 100 staff. And in that time, we've had over 4,500 successful applicants and awarded over 20 million in funding. The fund was then expanded in 2020 to include medium-sized businesses who employ between 100 and 250 employees. Basically, research undertaken by the CITB and feedback from industry showed that industry wanted support with developing new skills, and that there is a proven link between investing in leadership and increased productivity, efficiency, and quality. So that's just a bit of background around the fund. So what does the fund aim to do? So the Skills and Training Fund aims to enable medium-sized construction companies with up to 250 directly employed staff, such as yourselves, to improve their training program so that it meets the more complex needs of a developing business. This can include management and leadership training, helping you unlock growth through new technology or introducing new skills to improve productivity within your business. Since the turn of the year, CITB have removed the need for the training this fund will support to be new to the business, and this is expected to remain until September. So that basically means at the moment, this fund can be used for your business as usual training, which in the past is always have to be new to the business. So at the moment, it can be used for business as usual training. So that could include things such as your Part 1, Part 2 advanced scaffolding courses. So who can apply for the funding? So you can apply if you're a CITB registered employer, you have between 100 and 250 directly employed staff on your payroll, and any previous project paid for by the Skills and Training Fund has been signed off completely. So if you've had a funding project in the past, that also needs to be closed off before you can apply. You can apply for the funding once every 12 months, and the amounts of funding that you're entitled to apply for is on the screen there. So if you employ between 100 and 149 directly employed staff, you can apply for up to a maximum of 15,000. If you employ between 150 and 199 directly employed staff, you can apply for up to 20,000, and then between 200 and 250, it's £25,000. So in terms of what you can apply for, there's a wide range of training, providing that it's either construction specific or to develop management, leadership or supervisory skills. The slight caveat there is that if it's management, leadership or supervisory skills, the delegate needs to be in a supervisory or management role, or they're in the process of developing the skills to be in that type of role. Sorry, can I just ask whoever's joined just to mute, please?
I think that might be you, Claire. Could you mute, please?
Yeah, can I just ask everyone to mute, please? Those that are not on mute, can you mute your microphones, please?
How can I not hear anything? Well, they told me to mute it.
No, mute.
How did I do that?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So just to go back then, in terms of what you can apply for with the funding, you can apply for a wide range of training, providing that it's either construction specific or to development management, leadership or supervisory skills. The slight caveat here is the delegate needs to be in a supervisory or management role or developing the skills to become a supervisor or management. It will cover CITB standardized training. So like I mentioned, your part 1s, part 2s and advanced, but also could include other training such as in-house training delivered by an appropriately qualified trainer. Any in-house training that you take place will need to demonstrate evidence of how much the training is costing. So, you know, a breakdown of training hours versus cost of trainer. The fund will also support other types of people development activities, such as activity specifically aimed at developing skills or knowledge, such as, you know, mentoring training, development of training resources designed to meet very specific business needs, help for businesses to understand and plan the training needs through accredited business development training, but it won't cover any consultancy costs. More details of what can be funded can also be found in the funding guidance notes. If applications are successful, then the funding is paid in quarterly instalments against payment milestones, and Maria will just touch on that now. And again, just to remind everyone, you can apply for the funding once every 12 months, but the previous funding application needs to be completed and closed off before resubmitting a new application. So any old kind of funding projects need to be closed off to make it eligible to reapply. So Maria, do you want to kind of just cover the quarterly payments, please?
Yeah, sure. So because these are higher value applications that come through to us, we pay these out on a quarterly basis. So you'll go through a review every three months or so. So the first quarter of the payment on success of your application, so if you're approved, we'll pay that first quarter upfront, and you'll receive that straight away. Then after that, we'll regularly be in contact with you to ask for evidence of how the money that we've paid you so far has been paid or used against the training, against your application. So each payment milestone needs to be evidenced before we'll release the next set of payments. So it could be that you end up doing half of your programme straight away. So therefore, we'll be able to release a further 2 payments but each payment has to be evidenced with supporting documentation before we'll release the next payment. Does that make sense? So.
Thanks, Maria. And what I'll do, I'll pause there because I know I've thrown quite a bit of information about the background of funding and what it will support to see if anyone's got any questions. So Maria, could you just keep an eye out in case someone puts a hand up or puts anything in the box, the chat box. So yes, please feel free to ask any questions about anything we've covered so far. I'll take that silence as it's okay for us to move on. Is that all right, Maria?
Yeah, nothing in the chat, no hands up.
Okay. So in terms of the application process, then there are three main steps. Step one is to follow the instructions or the guidance provided on the CITB website. The link on the slide there will take you to the funding page, and that's where you'll find your guidance notes, the terms of funding, and also the application form. Step two then is there are 5 questions on the application form for you to answer, and we'll look at these in more depth in the next slide. And then also step 3, you basically list the training you wish to undertake on the application form, along with the training provider you wish to use, what the training is going to cost, how many staff you want to send on each course, and then also how you've ensured the training is of quality and how you've assessed value for money. And what I've done is I've put together like an example application form, just a simple example application form, which I'll show you guys later, just to give you an idea of what the application forms look like and how to set it all out. So the 5 questions you'll need to answer on the application form include: what is your business challenge or opportunity? Why you've chosen this program of activity? How will the training program help your business? And how will you measure success? And then, because of the changes within the funding since the turn of the year, which are due to be in place till about September, you don't actually need to answer the 5th question. That has been removed because of the changes. But in previous years, that 5th question would need to be answered, but it doesn't need to be answered at this moment in time. The funding team will then look at your answers to explain how the funded project would benefit your business in terms of productivity, impact, and how it demonstrates value for money and ensures quality of the training delivered, and we'll score that and decide whether to award the funding or not. So before submitting application, here's a bit of a checklist for you guys. You need to ensure that your levy return and payments are up to date. The activity listed in the application is construction specific or develops leadership and management skills. It includes sufficient details, and if at any point you need any assistance, please contact your local advisor. So I can't emphasize that enough, that any company looking to apply for this fund, I would make use of your local advisor. I would touch base with your local advisor, ask for support, ask them for them to check over the application before you submit, because they might spot something in there that you haven't included that needs to be included. And again, if you haven't or not sure who your local advisor is, if you can let Henry know, and then I'll happily share contact details for advisors in your area. So again, I'm going to pause at that point to ask if anyone's got any questions. And again, please, Maria, can you just keep an eye on the chat box and if anyone raises a hand. No?
I believe Jim's got a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, this funding is a different pot from apprenticeship funding, or is apprenticeship funding coming out of the same pot?
No, there are a range of different grants that you can access through the CITB. This funding pot is totally separate to the grant scheme.
Okay, great. And previous cases, obviously I'm relatively new into the role here, so I guess you'll tell me that if we've got any previous cases outstanding.
Yeah, we can check with the funding team and just ask the question, has this company got a current live project? If you do have, what we would do then is getting a local advisor to work with you to get that project closed off before you submit a new funding application.
Okay, great. And yeah, Henry, I think I'd like to know who our local advisor is once after the meeting. That's it for me.
Sorry, there's me speaking with the mic on again. My apologies. No problem at all, Jim. And in fact, what I will do straight after this meeting is just confirm that I still have the most up-to-date contact list. I'll speak to Alid about that afterwards, and I'll resend out the contact list for everybody who's attending, and make sure that I specifically identify who your local advisor is.
Thanks.
Any
Yeah.
questions?
So,
No, I think we can-
do you mind if I ask something very briefly here? And I may have misheard you, if that is indeed a word. You mentioned something about being able to use some of this funding for mentoring. Was that correct?
Yes, yeah, you can look at programs such as mentoring programs. It's kind of like a development need. Maria, do you want to add on to that type of?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the fund can support coaching and mentoring. So yeah, if you need to do some coaching or mentoring, yes, you can include that in your application.
No, thanks. The reason why I mentioned that is because mentoring is something that's had increasing focus for us. A number of members have been very keen to establish what they might be able to do in terms of mentoring, because it's clearly a way to improve the relationships with staff and also therefore retention. We've also got an additional program with a focus on returning citizens, or ex-offenders as most people sort of refer to them, where mentoring is an integral part of that. So I suppose the key thing for me is establishing whether there are prescriptive mentoring programs that will be funded, or can they be any mentoring program? So they had to come from a prescriptive CITB list of approved providers.
No, it doesn't have to be one of our approved organisations. It can be any company, as long as they're qualified and you can show the quality of that within your application, to show that they are fully qualified to deliver that sort of programme, I suppose. And the coaching and mentoring is more, it's to help develop the teams. So, I mean, the leadership and management is all around building high performing teams, communication, all things along those lines. And the coaching and mentoring is kind of to sit alongside that to help coach a leader or a manager be able to do that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so what happens next? So once your application has been submitted, you will receive an automated email from the funding team to say they have received your application. The content of your application then will be assessed and scored by the funding team, and then you will get your decisions by the 3rd week of the following month. So, for example, if you submitted an application before the end of April deadline, the 30th of April deadline, you would get a decision on your application by the 3rd week in May. If you submitted an application in May, you'd get a decision by the 3rd week in June, and so on and so on. So there is a scoring window every month. So
I was going to say, just going on
sorry,
that,
yeah.
Alid, just quickly. So we do try and reach out to everybody if we require more information to help support that application. So if we've not been given enough information on a particular course that's not by one of our approved organisations, or we can't find access to it on the website, we will reach out and try and gain that information. But because we do have a window every month and we do have really tight deadlines to meet that each month, worst case scenario is if we don't get that information in time, we will just move you across to the next month, and you'll just be reconsidered then.
Thanks, Maria.
Alex.
Then in terms of possible outcomes, you know, the 3 on the screen there, can you just explain a bit more, Maria, regarding resubmit and possibly the main reasons for declined applications in the past, just to give us an idea?
Yeah, sure. So resubmissions will be along the lines of we haven't got enough information. Like I say, we've got really set tight deadlines that we need to meet each month. So if we require more information to help support that application, or we just need a little bit more understanding of a particular activity, if we don't get the response in time to close the window, we will just ask you to resubmit the following month. Resubmits could also be because levy's not up to date, or you've got another project still open that just needs to be completed. But resubmits, there is no reason why you can't move into the next window and be reconsidered. Declines would be because the activity just isn't supported. We get quite a lot of applications come through asking for first aid, HGV, LGV, and things like finance and things like that, software. They are things that we just don't support in the fund. So they would be the main reasons for decline. It's an activity that we don't support.
Thank you. Okay, and then just a reminder where you can find all the information in terms of the fund overview, the application form, and the step-by-step guidance notes. But again, just to emphasise there, you know, to speak to your local advisor, and they will be happy to support you and give any advice with the applications. So before we have a look at some of the funding examples, does anyone have any questions they want to ask so far?
Just very briefly, I know that this was touched upon to some extent by Maria, but are there very typical things that tend to be reasons why applications are resubmitted?
So the typical reasons would be we just don't have enough information. We don't fully understand what it is you're trying to achieve, how it's going to support the business going forward, or it's quite costly. So we just want to understand how much is attributed to training. Basically, what the fund is there for is for the training elements. So it's just gaining that more of an understanding of what's being requested. So they're the main reasons for resubmissions. We just need more clarity, more confirmation, more understanding of what it is you're asking for and how it will help the business.
Thank you, Maria.
Okay, so we've also just included some funding examples for you to get an idea of what the fund has been used for by companies in the past. So the first example there, the challenge was to upskill site managers to establish a continuous and effective leadership approach. They've outlined how the training would help them. They've recognized a skill gap within the current management team, and it will help future-proof the organisation with accredited training and clear leadership framework. So the course that were funded was, you know, five employees on an ILM level 5 course and 3 on an ILM level 3, and they were awarded £15,640. Next example, increase their digital approach to improve the way the business operates and become more efficient. You can see how the training was going to help them, and then also an idea of what courses were funded on that fund was just under £20,000 awarded. Third example, ensuring employees had the right skills, capability and knowledge aligned to recent significant business changes. No previous formal leadership and management training and wanted a consistent approach for future. Outlined how the training would help them, and then also a breakdown of what courses were funded there. So it was a bespoke leadership and management program, and a bespoke contract and commercial training program as well. And that award was just under the £14,000. Fourth example, wanted their entire workforce to understand the impact that quality had on the way they worked. Introduced the principle that everyone had a role to play in consistently improving quality, and this would lead to improved productivity and error reduction. Outlined again how the training would help them as a business, and then again the course funded reducing errors, avoiding construction errors, and strategies to eliminate errors for leaders in construction project. And again, that was around £16,000 awarded there. Fifth example, the business did not have in-house plant operatives with up-to-date GPS technology, how the training would help, and then also a breakdown of what courses were funded. So just, they're just some examples of what the funding has been used for in the past. You potentially could argue a case that the examples are slightly outside of what you would class as business as usual training, but that's why we've run this webinar, because it's important to remember that the fund can now be used for your business as usual training. So anything you would generally do in terms of scaffolding training, you can include within your application. What I'll do as well is also, I'll share the presentation with Henry after we finish, but I just also wanted to show you what the application forms look like. Can you just confirm that you can see that on screen now, please, Maria?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just an example of what the medium firm application forms what it looks like. So you've got your application details page. So I've put in a made-up scaffolding company there, just all the basic details. You can choose how many employees you have, and that will change how much. So all the grey boxes are kind of pre-populated or auto-populated, if you like. And then the terms and conditions are on here, so you just have to kind of agree to the terms and conditions. Next tab along, the application questions. So these are the questions that you have to answer. There are 5 questions, but because of the change in the funding at the moment, you don't have to answer that last one. So I've just, very straightforward. What is the challenge or opportunity that you'd like to address? I should put in the company have an aging workforce, and we'd like to upskill all our current Part 1s to Part 2s, and then all our scaffolding labourers to Part 1 scaffolders. This is just, a basic idea that I put together. Why have you selected this program of activity? It's more to do like succession planning around the aging workforce. And I'm happy.
From Jim.
Sorry?
We have a question from Jim.
Okay.
Right, I just wanted to ask, where do we access this form that we're looking at now? Where do we find that to start filling in or to start the application?
It's on the website, but the link to that page on the website is within the presentation.
Okay, lovely. So we'll get a copy.
But yeah, so we can put that in an email as well. That's no problem. And then third question, how do you address specific challenge? I've just put in low trained scaffolders to meet the needs of our clients, and how are we going to measure success? I've just put on achievements of Part 1 and Part 2 qualifications. It's very simplistic. What I've put there, I would imagine the funding team would just need a bit more information, but it gives you an idea. Then I'll just have a look at the grant eligible tab first, because this is where you would put the kind of like your grant eligible training. So the business as usual stuff, as I say. And again, what I've done is just put the example I want scaffolding Part 1 tube and fitting. I want to put 10 on the course with Simeon Risk as a training provider. They charge £1,250 per person for the training. I want to start my training program on the 1st of May 2022 and then end it on the 30th of the 4th 2023. The reason I put them dates in, it basically gives me 12 months then to get the training done. You don't have to be specific in terms of what actual dates you're sending them on the course. So I'm just kind of saying in this application, within the next 12 months, I will be putting 10 participants on a Part 1 course. The subtotal for the training is £12,500 because it's 1,250 times 10. we have to offset the grant you'd get back from the CITB within the funding application. So because you get £500 grant back from the CITB for sending someone on a Part 1 training course, we have to take £5,000 off the funding, because the additional funding you're asking for is the £7,500. Does that make sense to everyone? So
another way I try to explain it is the funding is I suppose like a top up to the grant scheme. So it's the difference. So you'll be able to apply for your grant through the normal grant channels, but the funding is a different fund.
Yeah, so it's the extra, if you like, the top
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So then
We have a question from Jim.
Yeah.
So the £500 for a Part 1 that we get back from the CITB levy, I guess there will be a different amount per different course as to what you get back, or if you get anything back for a particular course. Where's all that information at, in terms of, so we know what to fill in on this application form?
We'll the grey boxes on the application form will self-populate, so you don't have to work out the grant amounts. But you're right in saying that there is different grant amounts for different courses that we grant aid. So your Part 1s, your Part 2s and advanced scaffolders, they're across the board, it's £500 grants. But with something like the CPD course, the 2-day CPD course, for example, the grant is £600. The grant is £60, sorry.
Yeah.
Within the application form, there is a what we call the get code list. So we update the application forms every time the grant codes are amended or updated. So there's a reference that you would select off there, which will then apply the relevant grant that you can apply for.
Okay, so when you go into the grey box, effectively you select the course and the reference from that, the drop down list, I guess. What
I'll do is I'll show an example. So get code, if I wanted to add to my application, I think of a simple one. Let's go. If I wanted asbestos awareness. So the get reference I need is 224. So if I go back into my application form, I scroll across. If I put 224 in there, it self-populates with the asbestos awareness, and it tells you what grant tier it is here. So you don't have to worry about that much. You could put any training provider. Again, I want to send 10 on the course. It's costing me £100 per employee. You'll populate the data, but as you can see here in the grey boxes, it's worked it out in terms of the 10 times 100 is £1,000 for the training. Because I'll get £30 per person back, that's the £300 in grant. So it's automatically worked out. I'm asking for 700 in the additional funding. Is that okay?
Brilliant. Great. Thanks for that.
And then we've got another question from Katie, Aled, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. It's just I think you just answered it actually, because it's all on the, so whatever's on the code list, that's they're all eligible, all those grants.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the CPD refresher training, that's all included.
Yeah. You might. The only thing I would say is maybe sometimes it's difficult to find the right course, because maybe the title that we have here is different to what you guys would use, and that's why I kind of say maybe, you know, working with your local advisor is the kind of way to go, because, you know, yourselves in industry would refer to something like an SMSTS as an SMSTS, but on here it would be, I'm trying to remember now, is it
Health and safety and construction?
Health and safety and construction site management.
Yeah. Right.
So you know, so yeah, but the list is there of everything that is grant eligible. And then the final two columns in the application form here, how have you ensured the quality of this activity? Well, I've just put Simeon Risk, an accredited scissors training centre, so we are confident that the training delivered is of industry standard. Quite straightforward. And how have you assessed the value for money for this activity? So, you know, I've gathered quotes from a couple of other providers. They're all at similar prices, but Simeon are local to us, so it will minimise travel and accommodation costs. So it's just that to give you an example of the type of thing that you can kind of put in. So that's the grant eligible. You can also include non-grant eligible training. So this is where your things like, if I'm right in saying, Maria, kind of like a mentoring program would come into it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So anything that's not on our grant eligible list, you wanted to include, this is where you would put it in on the form. So like you can see here that there isn't a code it asks for, there isn't a grey box, so you would just put in the titles into this here.
The one thing that we would ask on the non-grant eligible side is we do still ask for a per person price, but we know a lot of these are going to be packaged up and delivered as a group. So it's just making that clear in the value for money section. So break it down and confirm, even though you would have put how many people are going to be attending the training, break it down, how many days training you're going to get, what's the daily rate, and information like that. It's just the way the application works is we ask for the per person, but we know not everything is going to be per person. So use that value for money section to put as much detail and breakdown as possible. The box looks small, but it will expand once you start entering data in it.
Yeah, and if you can see on the screen there are prompts once you click on each box what they kind of want you to put in. So yeah, but like I say, anyone who's interested in applying and wants support, your local advisor is there to provide you with that support. If you're not sure who they are, let Henry know and I will send him over the name and contact details of the person within your area. And that's it in terms of the presentation and showing the application form. But again, happy to take more questions if anyone wants to ask anything now. But I will share the presentation and the kind of the mock application form, if you like, with Henry to share with you guys.
I would just say as well that the like Ali just said, the application forms have got built-in guidance, but we also do have some how-to videos on the website where the application forms can be found. So it will run through what Alice has just done there and show you how to complete the application form and the sort of information that we want as well within there.
I have a question from Jim.
So you can just put as many courses as you want on one application form up to the ceiling price that you are allocated per year.
Yeah, so it's your training plan for the next 12 months. So all training has to be in the future. It can't be retrospective. But yeah, it's your program for the next 12 months.
Right, great, thanks.
What you'll find, Jim, if you go back to the application details page, depending on how much numbers you have, it gives you your entitlement, but also will show you, what you're asking for in the application as well. So obviously what we're asking for in this so far is above our allocation. But if you were to change that to those numbers, our entitlement is 20,000, and what we've asked for so far is 19,400.
We know there's going to be times where you can't get to the exact amount. So if it goes over and your application is above what you're entitled to, we will cap the funding. So you can include things that do take you slightly over, but we will just cap it to your entitlement.
Okay, great.
Just in respect of what Maria said about not being able to apply for funding retrospectively, considering that a number of members in attendance and other members who couldn't be here today were not aware of the new flexibilities that were applicable to them in respect to this fund, is there no dispensation for training that happened prior to today?
No, it has to be training in the future. So you would still be able to apply for your grant elements if there was grant eligible training there, but the skills and training fund, no, it all has to be in the future.
Thank you, Maria.
Maria, can you just confirm as well, similar to the smaller micro fund, that employers can add courses at a later date or make variations to the application?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment we do try to discourage variations, but we know we're not in an ideal world still at the moment, so variations do happen. It's easier with the medium fund because we have regular reviews, and we'll only release payment on those quarterly bases, on subject of evidence. So at each of that review stage, you can come to us and say, this isn't going to happen now, we need to change it to this training. We can review all that at the time, so we will allow variations. But we just ask them to be, especially on the small and micro fund, we just ask them to be minimised. But mediums size customers, it's slightly different because we've got more regular reviews with you. But what we would ask is you just check with us beforehand, before going ahead with any of the training, just so that we can make sure it is something that we support. Because we wouldn't like for you to attend some training, then you come to us and ask for the money because you've done a change, but it's not something we can support under the fund. So we would ask you just to email the skills and training email address. Yeah, just so we can approve it, basically. So yes, we will allow changes, but ask us first. I suppose is the answer to that. I think Katie dropped off and wants to come back in. Okay, any other questions?
Well, I'm somewhat stunned into silence by all of that, so I can understand. If there are questions that people have, don't stand on ceremony. Please let me know as soon as, and it's quite possible that you'll go back and reflect upon this and some things will suddenly sort of hit you like a lightning bolt. So don't feel that this is the final opportunity to get some meaningful support or answers to questions that you may have, and the ones that will occur subsequent to the webinar. If there are no further questions at this stage, first and foremost, thank you everybody for your patience and tolerance with all the technical difficulties that we had. Really appreciate some of the questions that you've been asking as well, because a lot of the time it can be difficult to sort of articulate exactly what you're trying to consider, and you do ask questions on behalf of people that might be a bit more reticent about asking these questions, so that's quite invaluable. Also, I want to thank all of our colleagues in CITB, Maria, Richie, and Alid. As has been expressed, I will be sending out links to the presentation. I'll also be sending out a link to the actual webinar itself. So upon reflection, again, it may provoke some additional questions, and we're here to help. We're here to answer any that you may have. What I'll also do as part and parcel of the information exchange is to make sure that I give you the most up-to-date contact list for your local advisor. So do, again, feel free to contact me immediately if you want access to that information with immediate effect. But outside of that, if there are no further questions, thank you once again for all your attendance and your attention, and have some excellent days. And have a very Merry Easter indeed. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Henry. Thank you.